be here. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but I just want to say thank you to Belinda and Anita for having me as today's opening keynote for the first annual World Leadership Conference. I want to start off by asking you all a simple question, and that is, what does it mean to grow? So just think about that for a moment. What does it mean to grow? So if something is to grow, it must change, right? And in order to change, one must evolve, refine, improve upon oneself. See, most of us as educators, we are familiar with the life cycle of a butterfly, yes? Do you guys know the life cycle of a butterfly? Okay, so this is where a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. We call this process metamorphosis, which is the process of change. And just like a butterfly, as human beings, we have to constantly go through change throughout our lives so that we can become the person that we are meant to be. And maybe your growth will come from a job promotion, or starting a family, or even traveling the world. But there's one thing that I know for certain. Adversity creates the greatest amount of change because it brings out the best in people. Your hidden talents, your strength, and your leadership abilities. Today's leadership conference is focusing on building leadership capacity. Now, in my opinion, the things that make good leaders great are the trials and tribulations of failure. See, as a leader, when you've endured adversity, whether it be personal or in business, you're then able to build resilience and the resolve to succeed in all endeavors set before you. Now, the word leadership is less about title and position, and it's more about capacity. Being someone who is able and willing to learn, to master one's own gifts and talents, to be courageous and transparent, and to really tackle obstacles head on while standing up for what's right. Now, I know there are many aspects on how a person can be a great leader, but in my talk today, I want to focus on a topic that I personally feel is sometimes overlooked when we think of the word leadership, and that is adversity. How will you deal with your personal adversity while you're in a leadership position? Because if you're not good here, emotionally, physically, spiritually, then it will almost be impossible for you to lead. So if you are ready and willing today and tomorrow to commit to a positive growth mindset, not only for yourself, but for other leaders, here is the first step that you must take. You must learn to embrace challenges as they come so that you can thrive in adverse conditions and find greater fulfillment in life while experiencing change. Now, I know this is not a new concept. There is a historian by the name of Herodotus, and he once said, adversity has the effect of drawing out strength and qualities of a man that would have lain dormant in its absence. So what does that mean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, whether we like it or not, adversity is alive in our daily experiences, and it can strike when we least expect it to. And what I've learned from my own experience is that it's not so much about how to overcome adversity, because we hear too often about how to overcome, but it's more about how to embrace adversity, so that we can then open ourselves to possibilities and really build character, along with other values like leadership that really matter to us. But of course, when adversity occurs, it is natural and it's human nature that we want to dwell in self-pity. But when we do, we fail to recognize all the opportunities that were literally laid in our path for our advancement. You see, every struggle, every challenge or difficulty that we can successfully confront in our lives, it serves to not only strengthen our confidence, but also our ability to tackle future obstacles, yes? So when we learn to respond positively and objectively to challenges, we then place ourselves in position to experience change in multiple degrees, such as tapping into your own willpower and creativity. Now, in order to succeed, there are certain mindsets that we must have, and these mindsets are the attitudes and core beliefs that really create the essence of who we truly are and how we approach life. Now, in terms of your own mindset, you can be two things. Number one, you can be a victim, or you can be a victor. It's not too often you can be both. See, a victim is someone who walks around and blames everyone and everything for his or her mistakes, but a victor takes responsibility for them. Growing up as a child, my parents, they would always tell me something that stuck to me as an adult, and that was that I was lucky. And I think that I automatically assumed because of that, I would not have to endure some of the hardships that I witnessed my friends dealing with. Until a sudden medical condition humbled me at the age of 26. See, about 10 I came very close to dying due to a life-threatening condition at that time, and that adversity drew out strength and qualities that I never knew existed in me. And though I was blessed to have survived that situation, I don't think that I truly valued the entire process until I started to see myself as a much stronger and self-aware individual. You see, sometimes in life we have to go through challenging circumstances in order for us to become the person that we're meant to be. Do you agree? Bringing it back to what I said earlier, this is why it's important. You must learn to embrace the challenges as they come into your life so that you can thrive in adverse conditions and really find greater fulfillment in life while experiencing change. Looking back, if I had to change that situation, I wouldn't. Because I know if I hadn't gone through that level of pain and discomfort, I would not be the woman standing in front of you today. You see, I started to look at life differently. I started to appreciate everyone around me, but most importantly, I started to have faith in God and what He had planned for my life. See, it was never about the pain for me. I have an extreme high tolerance for pain, let me tell you. But what I took out of the experience was the challenge to fight through something that was trying to hold me back from my purpose. And that challenge to overcome my illness is what saved my life, because in turn, I had to become a different person in the process. Let's think about it. Let's think about all the leaders in society who has made a tremendous impact in society. They did not reach that inviolable level of success without overcoming challenges along the way. And it's not about that person's success that stands out. When I think about people like Martin Luther King Jr., right? Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, Oprah, the list goes on and on. It's not about their success that stands out, but more about who those individuals had to become in order to reach that level of success. I want you guys to do me a favor, and I want you to look at the word challenge. You guys see it up on that screen? Look closely and let me know what you see. If you're looking closely, you will see the word change. Think about that. You can only experience change after you embrace the challenge. So speaking with you today, I'm really going to share with you 7 truths that shifted the trajectory of my life and can do the same for you, because if I can do it, you can do it, right? And so my hope in these 2 days, like Belinda had mentioned, is that you will experience a level of growth, whether it's in your mindset, whether it's in your leadership abilities and skills, whether it's in your confidence, because I truly believe that if you can grow within yourself, then and only then will you truly be able to lead and help other people grow as well. So I want you to take out your notepads and pens. We're educators, we love to write and take notes. So I want you to write down these 7 truths, and I'm going to give you guys nuggets within these truths. Now, you don't have to write everything. If something speaks to you, write that down. If it doesn't speak to you, then that's okay. But I want you to later go back to your notes so that you can make a correlation between these truths and any adversity that maybe you have already experienced, you may currently be dealing with, or maybe you may deal with in the future. Can we agree to do that? All right. So just to make sure that you guys are with me, when I say in order to, I want you guys to say grow. Let's see how loud you guys can be. In order to, grow. Again, in order to, grow. Life requires sacrifice. In order to grow, life requires sacrifice. Who or what comes to your mind when you think of the word sacrifice? I want you to write that name down. Who or what comes to your mind when you think of the word sacrifice? Does anyone want to shout out their answer? Who or what comes to your mind? Anyone?
Jesus.
Who?
Jesus.
Jesus, yes. Who else? Come on. Your mom. Great. Who else? One more person?
My kids.
Your kids. Awesome. When I think of the word sacrifice, I automatically think of my parents. My dad came to the United States. He left his country of Nigeria in 1964 to attend college. He met my mom. It's a long story, you guys. They dated literally for 3 weeks, and my dad helped my mom come over in 1979. And they've been married for 39 years. So just a show of hands, I'm just curious. How many of you guys were raised by immigrant parents? Okay, so the few of you guys understand my pain. Because I say that because my life in many ways was much different than the lives of my friends who had American-born parents growing up. Because in my case, the expectation to succeed as a child of immigrants was much higher due to the sacrifices that my parents made so that my siblings and I could live the American dream. I stand before you and I ask you guys a simple question. What sacrifices have you made in order to achieve the things that you want most out of life? Dave Ramsey, he said it best. He said, the most important decisions about your goals is not you're willing to do to achieve them, but what you're willing to give up. Because everything in life will require sacrifice. And I personally feel that a lot of times we spend so much time dreaming and wishing, even watching everybody else make their dreams come true, and less time taking action towards our own dreams. And then we wonder why we haven't reached the level of success that we want in our relationships, our careers, our finances, our health. So if there's anything that you guys want to achieve in life, there's 3 questions that you must ask yourself. I don't care what it is. If you want to achieve anything in life, there's 3 questions. The first nugget is, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? I know it sounds like a simple question, but in my years of experience as a business coach, it's one of the most difficult questions that my clients have to answer, because a lot of people don't understand what they want because they get their wants intertwined with the wants of everyone else around them. Listen, I know you love your family. This is not about what your spouse wants or your children, your parents, your boss, your friends. What do you want? It's that simple. What do you want? And once you have the clarity on what it is that you want out of life, the second question you must ask yourself is, what sacrifices am I willing to make to get what I want? Because everything in life requires sacrifice, right? 4 years ago, when I realized, I was really living fully within my potential, I said to myself, wow, you'll always know that you're living within your purpose because you're willing to give up most things others will not, right? It was the summer of 2014, I made a decision to write my very first curriculum, Scout High program, which is a goal-setting curriculum for high school students to help prepare students for life after high school. And my friends at the time didn't understand why I would spend 4 weeks out of the summer to write a 90-page curriculum. The same curriculum that's been funded and implemented within school districts for the past 5 years. I mean, I'm just saying, right? They didn't understand though, and I lost a lot of friends, right? And so you have to understand what it is that you want to sacrifice, because sometimes you may lose people. A lot of people are not going to understand your purpose, and your purpose is meant for yours and God's understanding only. And the reality of the situation is, most people may not be willing to sacrifice their leisure time, right? They're not willing to sacrifice their vacations. You guys are here on a Sunday. Most people are not willing to come here and learn. They're not willing to sacrifice their time to achieve their goals. And so people can only support you at the level that they're at. So if they don't believe that it's possible for them, then less likely they're going to believe that it's possible for you. And sometimes you can't just tell everybody, you just have to do it, right? And so when you understand what it is that you want and what you're willing to sacrifice, the third nugget is, what are the action steps that I must take each and every day in order to reach my goals? What are the daily action steps? And I want you guys to write this down with the deadline of completion, okay? It's very important. We're educators. We understand that it's one thing to have goals. It's entirely different to actually take action, right? And so I'm going to assume that we've all heard of SMART goals. Raise your hand if you've heard of SMART goals. Raise your hands high. Okay, keep them up if you apply SMART goals on a monthly basis. Keep them up if you apply SMART goals on a weekly basis. On a daily basis. You guys, that's not enough. That's not enough. There's actually a study done by the Dominican University of California, and the study showed that those who wrote down their goals were 42% more likely to achieve them than those who did not write down their goals. 42%. So we're collectively here trying to build leadership capacity. Can we not agree that goal setting has to come into play? Yes. We have to set goals. What do you want? What are the sacrifices that you're willing to make? And what are the daily action steps that you must take in order to reach your goals? Moving on to truth number 2. In order to grow. Let's do that again. In order to grow. Awesome. Life is about recognizing and accepting your limitations. But that doesn't mean that we all walk around depressed, okay? Now listen, raise your hand if you have limitations. Raise your hand. Everyone's hand should be up. We're not perfect. Each and every one of us has limitations. Listen, some of the greatest leaders of our time, they're self-aware. They understand what they're great at. They deploy all of their energy towards their strengths and they delegate the rest, right? And so you have to understand what it is that you're great at. But sometimes we go through experiences that makes us feel like we're not good enough, and that keeps us from reaching our full potential. Who or what, like someone said something to you? What happened? So think of a moment when something happened, someone said something to you that you feel that you were not good enough. Maybe this is something that happened in your childhood, or maybe you're in a leadership position. How did that affect your self-esteem or even your decisions? It's very important that you're mindful of that, right? Growing up as a child, I was honestly, people are always shocked when I tell them, but this is the truth. I was a DF student, C at best. And if you guys look up here, I talked all the time during class. This is an actual second grade report card, you guys. It says talking is sometimes excessive. I talked all the time in class. But my sister, on the other hand, who was 1 year older than me, she was a straight A student, poised, quiet. But what would happen would be my teachers would compare me to my sister constantly. So when my sister would move on to the next grade, I would receive her teachers the previous year, and they would say, "Hey, why can't you be more like your sister?" And little did they know that that caused pain to be compared to her. But luckily for me, my sister got placed in GATE in 5th grade. So I no longer had her teachers, right? But then I got labeled as an at-risk student, right? I got labeled as an at-risk student. The irony of this whole entire situation is 20 years later, I become a what? Teacher. And the one thing that I used to get in trouble for speaking is now what I do for a living. So I use it pretty well, right? So, but there was a valuable lesson. So in that respect, some of those teachers were a little bit wrong about me, but there's a valuable lesson that I learned from them that I want you guys to understand. And that's the next nugget. Never, ever, ever allow labels and titles to define who you are. Some of you are allowing your past mistakes and labels to define who you are today. I'm here to tell you, your past does not define you. It prepares you for your future, right? That negative self-talk, we have to be mindful of that. Because what we say about ourselves is who we become, right? And some of you are allowing your titles to define who you are. Listen, great. A lot of you in here have amazing titles. You've worked hard for them. You're deserving of it. But your titles does not define who you are, it's what you do. Your character, your integrity, how you treat other people, that defines who you are. And when you're in a leadership position, you always have to be mindful of that. Because your legacy, how will you be remembered when you are no longer here, is what's important. One of my favorite quotes is, let me see if I can get this right, being a leader doesn't require a title, but having a title doesn't make you one. There's plenty of people in the world who are leaders that have that title, but they are not truly leaders. Do you get what I'm saying? Be mindful of that while you're trying to build leadership capacity. How do you make your staff feel when they leave home at the end of the day? Your teams. That's what's important, okay? And then the second nugget is the only person who can tell you who you can or cannot become is yourself. Some of you allow other people to tell you who you can or cannot become, right? Maybe some of you are up for a job promotion. And I've been a teacher, so I know this stuff. I've been there. Some of you are up for a job promotion maybe, and you're scared to take it because of what other people may say. Maybe you got there a lot quicker than people in the past, and they're talking, maybe, I don't know. Right? But we're human, we want validation from other people. But one of my other favorite quotes is, validation is for parking, not for people. Right? But too often we want the opinions of others. I'm the type of person, I'm a people pleaser. I always please, right? But sometimes the opinions of other people, even those closest to us, can keep us from really reaching our full potential. So as long as you're mindful of that, that's what's important. Sometimes it's best to not tell everybody what you're doing, how you're doing it, when you're doing it, and just do it. And let your actions and your success do the talking for you. Yes? Okay. Moving on to the next group. In order to grow. Awesome. Life is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it. See, life will always find a way of testing your character. And your character will be determined by the choices of your actions. I was in 3rd grade. This is not the report though, you guys. I was in 3rd grade and I made a poor decision to forge my mother's signature on all my progress reports. And when my mom came home from that parent-teacher conference in tears, I mean, I didn't get a spanking, yelled at, I just knew she was disappointed. And I wish I could stand before you guys and tell you that I realized immediately at 8 years old what I did was wrong and I started to morph into the person God intended me to be. Nope. I was a hot mess for at least another 5 years, okay? But as I got older, I realized that disappointment is necessary in order to achieve the greatest amount of success. And your success will be measured by how you handle disappointments along the way. And so, things that are outside of your control, adversity, you're going to go through adversity in your personal lives and in your business at all times, right? It's outside of your control. But what you have control over is your attitude towards each and every one of those experiences. Yes? That's what you have control. And when you're a leader, I want you to keep this in mind the next time that your character is being tested. I want you to think before you act by considering the consequences. Because everything that we do in life will have a consequence. It will either affect us, those closest to us, or even people we don't know. Now, I get a lot of you, like when I was a teacher, I loved my job. You'll hear a little bit of my story a little bit later. However, even when I was in that position as a teacher, I knew that there was something deep down that I wanted to do. There was still more that I can do, right? And so what I'm trying to tell you guys is that maybe some of you guys have said that you're going to write a book and you haven't started. Some of you guys want to start a business or build a curriculum or a program for your schools and you haven't started. Even maybe some of you guys need to let go of toxic relationships. We've all been there, right? And guess what? There's someone out there who has yet to step fully into their purpose because they're waiting on your book. They're waiting on your products and services, your programs in your schools. People that can literally help push you in the right direction are waiting for you, but you haven't trusted the process. You haven't let go of relationships that are no longer serving your purpose. Everything that we do has an effect on ourselves, those closest to us, or even people we don't know. And I also want you to understand that it's not about blame or excuses. Especially when you're a leader, sometimes it's so easy to blame everybody else behind you, right? So if you're in a leadership position, you blame your employees, right? But I want you to keep in mind that at what point do we start taking responsibility for our own lives? I didn't even start taking full responsibility until I was like literally 30, in my early 30s. It took me that long. But my life completely shifted and changed, right? And in my personal opinion, a true leader is someone who understands that leadership is about taking full responsibility no matter whose fault it is. Because they understand that being a leader is about coming up with solutions rather than creating and being a part of the problem. Take full responsibility. Doesn't matter how you got there, you're now there, right? What now what? That's the question you should ask yourself. Now what? How can I make things better? And being a business owner, I actually own a tutoring company, and we rarely get complaints, but when we do, I already trained my staff, I already told them, I don't do that. I'm very sorry that happened. How can I make things better? Come up with a solution. As I was talking to these young ladies earlier, they said that they're firefighters. That's what we do as leaders. We fight fires all day, right? That's what we have to do. And then the next nugget is find a purpose that is greater than yourself. See, when you can find a purpose that is greater than yourself, you will never allow anyone or anything to get you out of character. Now, this is very important. We are in leadership positions. We are here to make impacts, here to change lives. And when you start to reach the top, when you're in a position of influence, no matter how kind and nice you are, I've realized this, right? There will always be people trying to tear you down, no matter what. That's inevitable. So you must be mindful of how you react to certain situations, because I've seen and heard of many people ruin their reputations and their positions because they didn't think before they reacted. There's a difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is impulsive. A response is calculated, right? It's thought through. So you may get an email that you don't like. What do? Close your laptop. Don't respond right away. You may get a text message. Turn off your phone. Because if you say what you want to say, you may never have what you want to have. And that's the reality of the situation. You must protect your peace and your position at all times, right? Your purpose must be greater than you. Because when it is, you're not going to allow your ego or other things to get in the way, right? Because you want to make an impact, you want to make a change. And so I want you guys to always keep that in the forefront. Moving on to the next truth. In order to, there you go. Life will require your A game, but not just when you think it benefits you. So with a show of hands, how many were like me where you started off life a little slow? Meaning you need push. Okay, a few of you guys, you need to push in the right direction. So I was grounded for like 2 summers in a row. I mean, who gets grounded for 2 summers in a row, right? I was always getting in trouble. However, as I got older, I became the leader of my family. I became the overachiever. Like, I became obsessed, really, with success. And some of you may have started off life great, but now you're the procrastinator. Or maybe you've always been great, right? But it's very great to kind of look back at your life and kind of see the transformation and your growth. I love to do that. When I was in my master's, so I have my master's degree in educational counseling and a PPS credential. I have 2 teaching credentials, a multiple subject and a PPS. Now, in my cohort, I was known as the overachiever, all right? And a few other people were known as that. And my teachers will always point me out. They loved my presentations, they loved my papers, but my friends would approach me and they would say, oh my gosh, Dupe, your presentation was amazing. It had all the bells and whistles, and you did everything that was not asked of us. So you're kind of making us look bad. And after a while, I'm like, okay, maybe I should kind of tone it down a notch, right? That's what they were really trying to tell me. And I realized that I'm doing a disservice to myself and other people. Because if I do my best at all times, not only will I set high standards for myself, but I'll give other people the opportunity to apply my standards to their life. Too often, we find ourselves dimming our lights to make other people feel comfortable. For what? To be average, to blend in, right? We were all born to be great, and it's not up to you to lower your standards to make someone else feel comfortable. It's up to them to raise their standards, right? And so I want you to always keep that in mind, that the next time, especially in your leadership positions, when you're being challenged to bring your A game, you should always think about others, even when you think no one will be affected by your actions. Because we have that voice in our head. I always call it the melodrama voice. You know that voice that never shuts up? Okay? Sometimes it tells us, nobody's watching, nobody's paying attention. Trust me when I say people are always paying attention. They may not like your tweet on Twitter. They may not retweet or share your post. You may never get the pat on the back that you want from your employer, or the thank you that you want from your students' parents for all the things that you do for their children. But that doesn't mean that we stop doing what's right, right? Because character is what, doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Okay, so I want you to always think about others, even if you think that they will not be affected by your actions. And then those moments that you don't want to do something, do it anyways. Okay? And again, you guys don't have to write all this down, just whatever speaks to you, okay? So I don't want you guys stressing out about that. But those moments that you don't want to do something, do it anyways. We've all been there where we say we're going to, do something, and a month, year goes by and we haven't done it, right? And I know it sounds cliche because I'm a motivational speaker, I make videos every day and quotes and things like that. And even I sometimes roll my eyes when I see these cliche quotes. But this is so true. It takes one step. That's it. Once you take that first step, you build momentum, and once you build momentum, you make progress, and guess what? Progress is what makes us happy in life. Think of any area of your life that you made progress. Your health, your relationship, your finances, your career. You're happier, right? And so I want you to think of those moments. Tony Robbins said, you must change your shoulds to musts. If there's anything you want you to do in life, you must change your shoulds to musts. Because we always say, I should do this, I should do that. But when it becomes a must, we get it done. I must pay my bills, otherwise I'll be sleeping on the street. So why can't we apply that same self of urgency to our own goals? I like to put pressure on myself. See, the shoulds to must really doesn't work for me. I apply pressure. So as a curriculum developer and course development coach, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs on the day-to-day to help them build out their online courses, school districts, businesses, government agencies to build curriculum. And since I'm so busy helping other people build their courses, sometimes my projects are left on the side. And so what I do to not procrastinate is I'll apply pressure. I'll increase my course platform fee for the month because if I'm paying and wasting money, I'm going to get my course done. And I kid you not, I'll have that course done in 5 days. Right? Apply pressure. If you know that you're going to procrastinate, apply pressure to yourself because procrastination is the thief of time. It robs you of the life that you could be living, okay? So stop holding your dreams hostage and really start being intentional with the things that you want. Next nugget is people will always hold you at the standards that you set for yourself. If you want to increase the quality of your life, you must raise your standards. So if you set low standards for yourself, then don't be surprised that people set low standards for you as well, or hold you to a low regard. Because people mirror what we show them. But if people, right, hold you to a high regard, then that's most likely the standards that you have set. But if someone's like, I don't know about that Sue, well then Sue, then that's your standards that you have set for yourself, right? So you need to step it up. My generation likes to say level up. Have you guys heard of that term? That just means do better, okay? You have to step up your standards. All right, moving up to our next truth. Truth number 5, in order to grow. Life is full of advice. You don't need to follow it all, but you must consider it all. Now, how many of you guys were like me, or you've ever said this, I should have listened to mom and dad? Raise your hand if you said that. I should have listened to mom and dad. I don't know how many times I've said that. And it's so funny how parents can kind of predict the future, right? Like they know exactly what's going to happen. This was back in 2006. I had just finished my multiple subject teaching credential, okay? And I was trying to get a teaching job. So what I did was I substitute taught for about 3 weeks because my school district was on a hiring freeze. So the last school that I substitute taught at was actually like considered the training school of my district, and the principal was doing a walkthrough that day. And so she came in my classroom and she walked out. I thought everything was great, but after school she called me to her office and I started to freak out. Because who wants to be called into the principal's office, right? And when I got into her office, she told me, she's like, you know what, we have a second grade position and I would like for you to interview for it. And I did, and I got the job. Well, immediately I called my mom and I told her about it, and I was more concerned on telling her how my portfolio was beautiful and the principal liked the portfolio, and my mom, she didn't care. The first thing she asked was, what about medical benefits, right? Parents ask the right questions. And I'm 26 years old, okay? It was the first real job that I had. I wasn't caring about medical benefits. And so this is actually, you guys, it's kind of dark, you can't see this, but this was my last year teaching. I love those kids. It was an amazing last year, but that was my last year teaching. But I wanted to tell you guys that back then, so this is back in 2006, 2007, when it wasn't mandatory for you to have health insurance, right? And so what happened was school districts, my district, Long Beach, California, there was massive budget cuts, so they weren't issuing any contracts. What they were doing was hiring teachers as long-term substitute teachers, but in vacant positions. So you made a teacher's salary, however, it didn't come with benefits. Now, my mom was encouraging me. Now, she's a nurse at that time. She now owns a nursing institute, but back then she used to deliver babies, so she knew all about health. She's saying, well, honey, having medical benefits is just in case. Because to give you guys context, as a child, I was literally never sick. So my first year teaching, I'm making about $48,000 a year. I was not trying to spend $300 a month on something that I thought I would never need, right? And so I didn't understand what the big deal was until it became a big deal, right? Sometimes we get unsolicited advice from people, or we seek advice. But what I've learned is that no matter what advice that is given to you, you must always consider it, because there's always nuggets of truth within the advice someone gives you. And so most of us go to conferences maybe quarterly, yes? Do you guys attend conferences frequently? No? Okay, as a speaker, I attend conferences literally every month, events every month. And so there's always a nugget, there's always something, whether you're in a staff meeting, or whether you're at a conference or an event, wherever you are, there's always something that you take that you're like, yes, this is exactly what I needed, and you apply it to your life right away. And it either changes your career or your personal life. Sometimes someone gives you advice, you kind of put it in your back pocket because you're going to need it later. And other times you may never need it, but you store it up here because you never know whose life you can change, right? But you must also separate who's telling you the advice from the advice itself. Because we do this too often, whether our spouse or our parents tell us something and we're kind of, yeah. Because it's too close, right? But our friends say the exact same thing and we take our friends' advice. Haven't we done that before? And so you must learn to separate who's telling you the advice, because you don't want to allow your hang-ups to get in the way of taking good advice. It's usually how you're hearing it, right? Because of the person telling you. So I want you to keep that in mind. And going back to my story, it was not even a year later that I would soon find out why my mom was so adamant about me getting health insurance. And this leads me to truth number 6. In order to, life isn't easy, it's not meant to be, but there's always a way. So remember earlier in my talk I said there's one thing that I know for certain. Adversity creates the greatest amount of change because it brings out the best in people. This is where you figure out your hidden talents, your strength, what you're capable of enduring, your leadership abilities. At 26 years old, adversity hit me from all angles. Okay. My first year teaching, I was laid off, brought back the second year. That second year, I was getting a notice from the district that I was losing my job. And within that same month, I found out that I was diagnosed with tumors. They were non-cancerous tumors, but I was diagnosed. And because of my pain and discomfort and my symptoms, I was no longer able to fulfill my duties as a teacher. So, technically, I resigned from the layoff, okay? So I had to resign. And so the doctors put me on bed rest, and I would have my friends coming and going, bringing me food, keeping me company. But I hit rock bottom, right? I hit rock bottom. How did I get here? I was a lucky one, remember? Sometimes when we go through things, we all automatically ask, why me? Right? Why me? Well, why not you? If not you, who else? Because I truly believe that we're given the things that we can handle. And I wanted to blame someone. How many of you guys have been there where you're going through things, you automatically want to blame someone? Now, I could have blamed the health insurance at that time because, thank you, Obama, because now it's mandatory, but at that time, I couldn't have the surgery that I needed because now I had a pre-existing problem. I didn't listen to mom and dad. I didn't get the health insurance at the time. So now that my symptoms occurred, I just suffered. Couldn't have the surgery. And so the first person that I wanted to blame, that I could blame, was God. I grew up Christian. I grew up going to church every single day, pretty much of my life. But in that moment, at 26, I had never experienced anything until that moment. And so the first person I wanted to blame was him. Why am I going through this? I didn't understand. And then it spiraled into depression, right? But then I realized, wait a minute, I do need God, because it got really bad. And so I found myself kneeling on my hands and knees, and I never kneeled to pray. But this is probably the one time in my life I kneeled to pray, and I told God, like, listen, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I've sinned, because I did curse him, I was angry. But in that moment, prior to my prayers, I would pray about superficial stuff. God, please allow me to make enough money so I can buy a cute outfit to go out with the girls, you know what I mean? Like, those are my prayers. But in this moment, I was asking him, I just want to live. I'm 26 years old, I just want to live. I don't know why I'm going through this, but I just want to live. And I promised him that if he got me through that situation, that I would always trust in him no matter what he threw at me. I will always keep my faith. And I kid you not, it was not even 4 days later, I got a call from a hospital in Northern California, the same hospital my mother worked at as an OBGYN, and it was her surgeon that told me that they were going to perform the surgery for me. I guess my mom had been telling them my story for months. They couldn't deal with it. They're like, we're not going to just sit back and watch her die. We're gonna have the surgery. So I had my first surgery in December of 2008, and I remember opening my eyes from surgery. It's a weird experience when you're in anesthesia. I don't know if you guys have experienced that. You don't have to raise your hands. But I just remember everybody all around me. And they were talking, but it was mumbling, but all I heard was 17, 17. And when I came to, they had told me that they removed 17 tumors. 17 tumors. But I was victorious. Remember, you can be two things. You can either be a victim or you can be a victor. And in that moment, I became victorious. Because I played victim for too long. Right? Life will always find a way of knocking you down when you least expect it. One moment you're living blissfully in your life, and the next moment you're facing adversity and you're wondering, how did I get here? But God answered my prayers that day. I had my surgery, and not only that, the hospital actually covered the $90,000 medical bill. God is good. I needed to trust the process, right? So I want you to keep in mind that no matter what life throws at you, you must always be ready to face unforeseen challenges with a positive and strong attitude. Because when you're going through university, whether it's personal or in business, you're going through it. It's so hard to see the good within it. But in those moments, I want you to dig deep. I want you to fight. Okay? Because I kid you not, later on you'll look back and you'll understand why you had to go through what you went through. And then life is not easy. I know most of you have experienced some level of adversity. Whether something happened to a loved one and you experienced it personally, it's all going to happen to all of us in life, right? It's inevitable. But what's important to remember is not about trying to overcome it, because that word overcome makes it seem like, oh, I just want to get past it. But when you embrace it, it's about sharing your story. See, I never talked about my story up until a year ago. And when I opened up, many lives were changed. Because our stories, we go through them and they're not meant for us, they're meant to change someone else's life. And so when you see people go through tragic situations, I'm always amazed when parents, they lose their children, right? All the guns and the violence and things, and they create change. They're changing laws, they're making impact, they're making charities out of the name of their child, right? That's embracing it. That's trying to make change through something so tragic, right? And that's what I want us to keep in mind. And then there's always a way. When you're going through your adversity, sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But in those moments, I want you to dig deep. And also, I want you to think back to a time when you were able to overcome something else in your life, whether big or small. If you can remember something that you have overcome, it usually helps you get through that situation. Because this too shall pass. And this leads us to our last truth, you guys, of the afternoon. In order to grow, life is what you make of it. Life is what you make of it. To really make a long story short, I was laid off 4 consecutive years. My first 4 years of teaching, laid off. I taught kindergarten for 2 years, second grade for 2 years. Now, when I was laid off the 4th year, I was done. That's after I had a master's degree, a PPS credential, and so I left classroom teaching altogether. However, my passion for education was still there. And prior to education, I think I told Belinda this one time, I was actually a dancer. How many of you guys have heard of that TV show, Soul Train? Do you guys remember that show? Okay, so I used to be a dancer on there. And so I moved to LA, like most people move to LA, to be an actress, singer, model, all that stuff. So I used to be in the entertainment industry. So I thought, wait, if I can find a job that meshes my 2 talents, entertainment and education, that's going to be amazing. So the very first job that I took outside of the classroom was a director of education services position for the Beverly Hills Courier. Now, in other words, I was an education reporter. Built the education section from the ground up in less than a year, and I was laid off. They laid off about 6 reporters. That's 5 layoffs in a row, right? And after a while, I was like, I'm done. And so I asked God, okay, what is it that you want me to do? And I got the idea to start my own tutoring company. And prior to, actually I had already started it the last year teaching, those students' parents, they felt so bad that I was losing my job. They were like, why don't you tutor our kids for the summer? They were all advanced proficient. They didn't need tutoring. They just felt bad that I was losing my job. So that's really how it came about. I have to give them credit for that. But I went back to that. I took the money, the severance that I got from being laid off, and I opened up a business license and I opened up a brick and mortar. And we've been in business now for 8 years. We provide in-home tutoring for students K-12, as well as special education, mentoring services through my Skill High program that's been funded and implemented for the past 5 years. And then I've also developed a curriculum called the Cookbook, which teaches parents and students how to make quick and easy meals in the comfort of their home, right? And so we've really grown. But during that time, my tumors did grow back, but then I had another surgery. They removed a lot of tumors again, right? But it's not about the number. Remember I asked each and every one of you guys before, what does it mean to grow? In order to grow, one must evolve, refine, improve upon oneself. While you're in leadership positions, I want you to keep in mind, if you can deal with your personal adversity, then it's going to be much easier for you to truly lead and build leadership capacity. Because a lot of time we hold things in, right? When we come to work and we're angry and we're bitter and we're not our best. And And sometimes we are in a good mood, but we're hiding behind that, right? I know for certain I would not be up here speaking in front of you guys today. I would not be a keynote speaker. I would not be a 4-time published author. I would not be a curriculum and online course developer, entrepreneur, had I not gone through what I've gone through. Guaranteed. Because I would allow fear, I would allow negative self-talk, I would allow my insecurities, everything to get in the way of me fully reaching my full potential. Something about going through adversity really builds leadership. Something about it, I don't know what it is, but you almost have this, you become fearless almost, right? When I think of what I've gone through, I'm like, I got this. It's better than 39 tumors, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. In these 2 days, while you're trying to build leadership capacity, how do you want to grow within yourselves? What are the things that you want to accomplish for yourself first? Belinda mentioned that. Grow within yourself, because then you'll help other people grow as well. I'm going to end with a quick story. And this story is one of my favorite stories I came across online. It's the story of a 40-year-old man, and he was told that he had 1 year to live because he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And this man was very distraught. Who wouldn't be after they told they had 1 year to live? But also because this man was broke. So this man started to strategize, and he realized that he wanted to leave a legacy. So he wanted to live his last days as a professional novelist, which is the lifelong dream of his, and in hopes of publishing books and leaving his wife with the royalties. So this man began to write and write and write, and by the year's end, he ended up writing 5 books. However, this man did not die. You see, his cancer went into remission, and it ended up disappearing altogether. And throughout his lifetime, he wrote 70 books, and he lived a happy life. Now, most of you are sitting here bewildered, like, wait, what? This story took a turn, right? I truly believe that prior to cancer, this man was not living to his full potential. And it took the death sentence of cancer to really wake him up. Now he had the willpower, he had the fight, and the determination to live, and guess what? The universe granted his wish. Some of you today have yet to do the things that you've always wanted to do. You're still pondering over if you should start, how you should start, why you should start, instead of just starting. These past few weeks have been really hard for me because I've had 3 friends lose siblings, literally in a week. I mean, it's a little bit eerie. It's foolish of us to think that we have tomorrow. We always say, okay, tomorrow. Tomorrow's not promised. This moment right now, with all of us here in this room, this is the only moment we're really guaranteed. What it is that you want to do in life, within your positions, but also for yourselves. Whatever it is that you want to do, I implore you to stop cruising through life and really start being intentional with the things you want and how you plan on getting there. Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it.